Oklahoma kicked Nebraska's butt. I mean, that was as impressive a victory as I remember, in particular in a game that I've done, because we've done a lot of close games. So let's listen to what Brent Venables had to say after the game to Jenny on the field right after the win.
I love the attitude and the hunger in the locker room at halftime and the way we came out in the third quarter and really slammed the door on it. You know, not being satisfied, not being relaxed. I think the hardest time to coach is when you're having success. And so really proud of the maturity and the poise, the determination these guys showed all day.
I love what he was saying right there. You know, it can be hard to coach, you know, through success because a lot of times players just believe the hype. That's why Nick Saban, you know, talked about rat poison all the time. The old adage in coaching goes, and my dad used to use this, he was a high school football coach, is that you treat winners like losers and losers like winners. Generally, teams that are winning a lot, you've got to find reasons and ways to coach them really hard and to get on their case, to get them to hold the standard each and every day. Whereas teams that are losing every single week, you're desperately trying to find the areas in which you can build their confidence so that they can go and they can play with more self-belief. Some thoughts, though, as we get to OU. I've got 3 specific thoughts, okay? Let's start with the offense. We finally saw the OU offense under Jeff Lebby, and it's ahead of schedule, folks. This offense, I thought, played remarkably well. During the week and the conversations leading up to this game, Jeff Lebby, the offensive coordinator, he was telling me that this was going to be an explosive offense, an offense that was going to lean on the physicality up front in their offensive line. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, well, that's not the team that I saw on film against Kent State as he's talking. And the bottom line is, folks, like, they were not showing much at all in the first 2 weeks. So this was finally an unveiling of what this offense was going to be. And I, for one, thought it looked fantastic. So the handcuffs come off in the first 2 games, and Jeff Lebby even admitted to me, he's like, listen, we were staying basic against Kent State. Okay, I probably ran the ball way too much, in particular in the second quarter, when I should have been throwing the ball based on space and numbers, and more on that in a moment. But he said, I didn't do that. And I kept the handcuffs on our offense, and those handcuffs are coming off. And I thought, okay, well, we'll see what we get then against Nebraska. And after the first series, I was like, all right, you know, Nebraska's defense playing pretty well. And then bam, it was phenomenal from that point on. I thought that they were really physical up front. So let's go through some of the personnel groups, because OU fans, like I said, this offense is for real. We finally saw it, and it's ahead of schedule. They were really physical up front on the offensive line. I thought Cade Matayer, the guard, he did a heck of a job. He's the transfer in from Cal, and he's a guy that solidified them. Now, they've got a few transfers, okay, from through the years. Tyler Guyton was a transfer. He was playing right tackle. Chris Murray was a transfer from UCLA, not this year, but last year. So they've rebuilt their offensive line in the transfer portal. And remember, they still have their old offensive line coach. So Bill Biedenbow is a guy that has evolved in their run game. Their run game used to be like 2-3 years ago. It was all this GT scheme. They would pull a guard, they would pull a tackle, and it was all heavy downhill, kind of gap scheme oriented. Okay. Then last year, it wasn't materializing. It wasn't working like it had the previous season. And so they changed. They were more of a zone blocking team. So in a gap scheme, you're really using leverage and angles to block specific guys and create specific lanes for the running back. In the zone scheme, you're trying to cover up color in the defensive front, opposite color in this case, and let the running back choose which way he wants to go. So the running back's objective is to press the line of scrimmage front side, and then if the defense is flowing too fast over the top, he can cut back. If they aren't and they get stuck behind the play, then he can stay front side on the zone. So it really can go anywhere. He's picking his spot of where he wants to go. So very different style of run game. Specific lane versus a running back kind of picking where he wants to go using his vision and creativity. Now they're much more of a zone team. And within zone, you can run several different tracks of zone, inside zone, outside zone. Rather than get into the weeds in the zone scheme, I'm just here to tell you, their offensive line did a heck of a job. And they told me that they felt like this offensive line was going to be physical and nasty and a real strength for them moving forward. Again, I hadn't seen that in the first couple of games, but they took those handcuffs off, and I thought that the offensive line was as advertised in that matchup against Nebraska. They just beat Nebraska's defense down. And maybe you could say, like, well, yeah, it was just Nebraska, and I get it. Yeah, Nebraska was not playing very good defense coming into that game. They didn't play very well on defense against Northwestern. They did not play very well against defense, in particular against Georgia Southern. They gave up, well over 500-600 yards against Georgia Southern. So I understand there wasn't a great deal of competition, but this was still a step up from what Oklahoma had seen in the first 2 weeks. And that offense, in particular, that offensive line was physical. Then their running backs. I didn't know who's the guy who's going to step up for Kennedy Brooks. And what we saw was Eric Gray step up. We saw Marcus Major step up. Both of those guys ran well. Marcus Major is a physical guy. I think he's probably got the most potential, but you can clearly see that Eric Gray has the most versatility. So he gives you kind of that every down back, which is very much kind of a blanket for the offense. You can just walk in there and you know that you can operate any type of system or concept with Eric Gray back there. Whereas Major, he comes back there and you've got some physicality to that run game. I really liked what they gave you. And then on the outside, by the way, they were really good. Marvin Mims is a heck of a player. I really like Marvin Mims. Mims is a guy that can threaten the defense down the field. He competes for catches at the catch point, which I think is a rarity. And then elsewhere, Theo Weiss, really talented guy. I thought Jalil Farouk played well. Drake Stoops is a guy I love, in particular what he does in the slot. And then they've got young players, in particular Jaden Gibson, who I talked about during the course of the game, 6'5", 195 pounds. They think is going to be really good. So now all of a sudden you couple that with Daniel Parker at tight end, Braden Wills at tight end, Helms was in there at tight end. And that's a versatile offense, guys. I really loved it. But guess what? You still have to have a quarterback, and that's where the rubber meets the road. Why is Oklahoma's offense ahead of schedule? Because Dillon Gabriel is experienced and a playmaker. How does that come to fruition in this offense? You always hear that, oh, man, this guy is experienced. Oh, man, this guy has experience within that system. Dillon Gabriel, he played with Jeff Lebby for Jeff Lebby at UCF. Well, that's exactly what makes Gabriel so dangerous in this offense is his experience in the offense. Why is that so, Joel? Tell me, please. Well, because the quarterback makes so many decisions based on numbers. Okay, so this offense is predicated on the quarterback's ability to take advantage of ratios. That's what this offense is. And it's really a melting pot offense, and many are right now, but a melting pot offense of what you saw from Baylor years back when they were running the spread run attack, mixed with what Kiffin does in the passing game, mixed with what Biedenbow can do in the run game. So now all of a sudden you've got this pot, this amazing stew of offense. And what makes it go? It's Dillon Gabriel. Why? Because he understands the ratios. Okay, so we finally saw the real OU offense. It's ahead of schedule, and Dillon Gabriel is the guy that can operate it. Let me explain to you exactly what the ratios mean. When they get into the big spread sets, like I was talking about on the broadcast, the wide receivers way outside of the numbers, guess what they're doing? They're just counting chess pieces. This is why I love football so much. And it boils down to this, folks, and this is the simplicity of it, and this is what makes it so beautiful. Dillon Gabriel looks at the safeties. If there's two safeties back, that means that they have enough players up front to block the front players for Nebraska. It's called open coverage. If he's got an open middle of the field, two safeties back, then he can block everybody in the run front. So guess what you get? You get run game and you get RPOs. So you're putting the second level players in conflict. And by the way, they have more space to cover because the safeties are back at that point. So there's only, in particular in Nebraska's defense, 3 linebackers left out there, and you're putting them in conflict, constantly running the football, then getting an RPO, and you're kind of riding that run fake in there, and then they bite, and bam, you hit them right behind. So what does the defense have to do then? They have to shift. they have to make an adjustment. So they generally close the middle of the field. What does that mean, Joel? Well, they go from 2 safeties to 1 safety. They bring a safety down, and then they put 1 safety in the middle of the field. Guess what that leaves you? Well, you can't block everybody in the run front. There's an extra defender. But guess who's one-on-one on the outside? Those corners. And as soon as Nebraska went to a middle safety, Jeff Lebby and Dillon Gabriel just started attacking the one-on-ones. Slot throws. They were taking the seam throw. Sluggo on the outside. Slant and go. You better believe it. They were attacking those one-on-ones. Why? Because that's what the ratios said. It's a numbers offense. You take advantage of where the defense is going to give you an advantage. That's why it's so huge that Dillon Gabriel has played in this system before and has operated this system because he understands those ratios and he understands the advantages that his offense has and how to read them in real time. So why is the Oklahoma offense ahead of schedule? It's because of Dillon Gabriel, and I thought he played really, really well. It's not the only part of the Oklahoma team that I was impressed with. All right, let's get into the defense really quickly. If the offense was really good, guess what? The defense, they're significantly better this year. Significantly better. OU for years has been trying to figure out the defensive side of the ball. Guess what? OU fans, you finally have a defense that is really good. Really good. And don't give me this garbage like, hey, Nebraska, they were terrible. No, they weren't. Not on offense. Yeah, I know they fired their coach, and I know the defense wasn't very, very good, but this was still a team that had played, I feel like a million straight one-possession games against good opponents, by the way. Only lost to Ohio State by 9 last year. This is still an offense that was averaging 36 points a game coming into this weekend. This is still a quarterback in Casey Thompson that last year against Oklahoma in Red River threw for, 388 and 5 tugs? Right? So, they can still play. They went right down the field on the first series. I believe it was over a 70-yard drive. Bam, they go right down the field. And then from then on, whoa. It was fast, it was tenacious, and it was productive. Highly productive. This is the nature of this new defense under Brent Venables, okay? It's multiple fronts trying to disguise what you're doing up front in order to get a free rusher on the quarterback. Get production behind the line of scrimmage. You look at all the TFLs, tackles for loss. You look at the ability to sack and pressure the quarterback. It was there on almost every, as soon as they got a lead, almost every single snap. I thought that they had 5, 6 rushers, a free rusher. Casey Thompson was under constant duress, and it really fits their personnel. Folks, their personnel is perfectly suited for this style of defense. Why? Well, they're really big and physical up front, so they can jump out into odd and even defense. 3 defensive linemen or 4 odd or even, okay? They've got big guys. Jeffrey Johnson, the transfer from Tulane, 305 pounds. Isaiah Coe, a junior college guy, 305 pounds. Jalen Redmond, over 290. Good to see him get back out there after a COVID opt-out and injury last year. They've got some guys on the inside, but then they've got speed. You've got Reggie Grimes on the outside. Ethan Downs had a few productive plays. Deshaun White, David Agwebu, Danny Stutzman. These guys can run. So now you get the size up front and the confusion of the multiple front defense, and then you put the linebackers in so many different spots and let them run an attack. I thought that that's what allowed them to have so much success, in particular against Nebraska. And by the way, this is perfectly suited for a guy like Billy Bowman. Billy Bowman is really showing out, and I love his game, and I love this system. I was talking with Coach Stoops, Bob Stoops, this week in preparation for this game. I had a lot of conversations in preparation. Teddy Lehman, the former linebacker who does the sideline for the Oklahoma radio broadcast. And one of the things that they were talking about is the level of detail and execution that is being required from this group as opposed to previous. And the bottom line is that they are eating it up. The players are totally committed to this level of execution and play that they have put on the field the last couple of weeks. And I don't think that it's going to end anytime soon. Like I said, folks, Nebraska's offense was not bad coming into this game, and Nebraska just kicked their butt. Again, this defense is significantly better than previous. What does that leave us with then? Okay, so we talk all about Oklahoma. We get it, okay? We do the game. We see that. This blueprint that Oklahoma has is much more suited to potentially win a national championship. They know, Oklahoma fans, the blueprint of how to win the Big 12, how to go to the playoff. But this blueprint is much more suited because the defense looks like they can go out there and not just be okay, but maybe be very good. And the bottom line is there are a lot of programs that can have an explosive quality offense. There are very few that field a really good defense. And I saw a really good defense on the field on Saturday. So if this is a team that doesn't have to just go win shootouts in big moments, but can also rely on their defense, take some pressure off of their quarterback, maybe run the ball and play complementary football, then you have a team that can potentially win a game in the playoff and potentially win a national championship. Remember, this is a tried and true blueprint. There's only 2 teams that have won a national championship in any recent vintage in the last 15, 20 years that did not have a top 25 defense. It was the Cam Newton Auburn team who beat Oregon, by the way, and so you're not getting in a physical grudge match there. And the LSU team with Joe Burrow, which was close, by the way. I believe they were, I think 28th is the number, but I could be wrong. Maybe 31st. So they were close. But that offense was so good. I mean, they have Jamar Chase and they have Joe Burrow and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They didn't need a great defense, and they were able to win a national championship. But this blueprint is much more suited to actually win national championships than what they were playing with previous. It's not a shot at the previous regime, by the way, so we shouldn't take it as that, because I still think that USC, even after what they did against Fresno State, they clearly could be a playoff contender going down the stretch. But that's my thoughts on OU.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here, College Football on Fox.